Chelsea's season is still salvageable, guys. Yeah, we're 1 point of Champions League qualification as it stands in the league table. And in fact, there is some permutations that would see the Premier League get six qualification places in the league table, which of course we are in at the moment. I know the Premier League has broadly been trashed this season. You know, the good teams such as Chelsea and like Man City obviously getting comfortably dumped out of the Champions League, but it's not a vintage season. It's exciting for certain narratives. It's depressing for others, like Arsenal winning the Premier League, which is certain as far as I'm concerned. But it's a weird season where Chelsea could still meet their targets and we could look for brighter days in the future. But there is so much wrong at the club at the moment, top to bottom. And even if you can't immediately cut the head off the snake, the head being Bedadik Barley, then maybe you could chop some of the tentacles off of the wriggling monster that's slowly destroying the institution. I want to get into it a little bit today. I'm going to say it now. I think Chelsea should sack Liam Rosenior in this international break. I don't think they will. I genuinely don't think they will, but I think they should. Because this is awful, man. There's a lot of... By the way, sorry I'm in a vest. This is a little bit only Jan's today, but it's quite warm today in the kingdom, and I'm in this tiny office until I move house, and the studio lights cook me a bit, and I can't have the fan on because it's too loud for the microphone. So, yes. Excuse the nakedness. Yeah, man, it's depressing. There's a few things to highlight that are really sort of personify the situation. It's the first time we've had 4 defeats in a row since like 1994 or something. Way, like a decade before Roman Abramovich came in and turned Chelsea into a winning machine. Something that was highlighted on Match of the Day. Not just the dominant statistics from the Everton loss. Everton... we might have out-XG'd them, but as much as I do like XG broadly, lately it can do one. The fact that we had a higher XG against PSG over both legs and Everton in that game, for me, means diddly squat. We were thoroughly outplayed in those games, especially, in the second leg of PSG. But we've been outrun by every single Premier League opponent this season we've been outrun by. Just deep that for a second. Now, of course, there's some mitigating circumstances for that. One would be style of play. You try and keep the ball. You inherently run less. You have higher possession. You inherently run less. And Chelsea try and keep the ball. So there is that. It's not necessarily just a Rosenior thing because it's all season. Yeah. So we did have Enzo Maresca for the first half of the season. And then we've had Rosenior since. So it's across both managers. It's a sort of similar style of play of keeping the ball. And also you could say we got all the way to the final of the Club World Cup. Therefore, we're probably a bit tired. So if we're going to be completely fair, there's those two mitigating circumstances. But it's still a damning stat for every single Premier League team to have outrun Chelsea, is a nonsense. That's poor. We've had this stuff come out with Danny Finkelstein speaking to Not a Project FC, saying we're building the best effing team in the world. Something I'm not sure. I think I've probably said, but if I haven't, I'd like to say it now. He explained how there's no correlation with success and managers or something like that. The data suggests there's no correlation with particular managers and success, that it's more a collective institution. Nonsense. The arrogance is seeping through this sporting hierarchy at Chelsea. Look, I accepted it early doors. In fact, dare I say, I was even intrigued by it. Data-led stuff. It's hugely an Americanized approach to sport. Data-led stuff. It's very Moneyball. Do you know what I mean? For those guys who've seen it. And I actually, to a degree, am into that. I'm into the underlying numbers. I'm into finding ways to get ahead through the holes in data. I quite like it. I'm massively into the spirit, the mystique, the unquantifiable cultural elements of the game football. But I also like a bit of that as well. So this sort of data stuff comes in. They analysed Chelsea when they first came in and went, well, Chelsea's a great club, but you are not being run well financially, which fine. We weren't in terms of making a profit, but that wasn't Abramovich's interest. And two, they made themselves look like absolute numpties anyway because they've struggled to get front of shirt sponsors. I know they've got like back of shirt sponsors, sleeve sponsors, loads of different fleeting front of shirt sponsors. And, you know, the proof will be in the pudding, I suppose, when more finances come out. But generally, they've not looked good. And when they talked about, you know, we could be doing so much better on the pitch by just sort of analysing the data, you'd have to say no, because even if we had a good season last season, it did come with a little sort of burst at the end with the top 4 finish run that came with good form, with the Conference League, which we were always expected to win, and of course some good vibes in the Club World Cup final. But it wasn't conducive to their data-led model. It did not look like something building momentum to you know, this sort of obvious success that was there. There was no correlation, man. Yeah, in terms of what they're building. And in fact, the only correlation I'm seeing is what we've seen on the pitch the last few games. That correlates to what you, my friends, have built. Danny Finkelstein saying we're building the best effing team in the world. There's nothing to do with good managers and, you know, good team performances. I'd like to say, mate, look at you're watching the games, but go back and watch the footage. I see a lot of correlations to your approach and the finished product. Spoiler, it's BS. Now, it is all on seemingly clear late capital and the sporting directors. The Todd Boehly thing's an interesting one. He remains the Chelsea chairman, but from my limited knowledge of what's going on in the ownership rift, we're led to believe it's to do with the stadium, you know, situation, whether it's relocating, redeveloping, etc. That's what the briefing was. But Boehly did seem like the more Chelsea-esque owner. He wanted to be at the bridge smiling with people like, you know, Abramovich. He wanted to buy the superstars. You know, it was more Igbali that's always flanked by Wynne, Stanley and Stewart. And they're the ones obsessed with the youngsters. They're the ones you see more with the Strasbourg operation. And they're the ones you see, like, Barley coming out with just these one-liners that we don't like. And, you know, but Boehly's not done himself complete justice in these financial, like, you know, things. When he does his public talks at these expos, do you know what I mean? He does come out with some silly stuff. But like I've said recently, if truly these men collectively aren't just going to all disappear, that I'd like, if I was just clutching at straws, believe in the briefing that Boehly would be able to put together some financing to buy out Clear Lake. Because still, Boehly owns teams with superstars and winners in America. That's his experience for a long time, building successful sports franchises, buying superstars, and winning with superstar teams. Egg Barley runs like a money capital fund. He's brought in a couple of his like little stooges and, you know, the sporting directors, and this project is not working. It's simply not working. I like some players that they bought. I'm not going to act like they bought a bunch of bums that I hate, but the dysfunction's palpable. I like Enzo Fernandez, who's seemingly going to probably push for a move, I think. I like Caicedo. I like Palmer. I do like Romeo Lavia. I like Santos. I like Stevao. I'm sort of losing love for Pedro Neto. I'm yet to see what Gittins can do. Garnacho was a weird one. He wasn't that much money, but I can kind of see. If there was one opportunistic purchase, Garnacho at 40 mil makes the most sense for me. Delap at 30 mil is looking like a mistake, even though. Do you know what I mean? I quite like Gusto for not a lot of money. You know, Madueke and Jackson profit. I don't mind you buying players like them for profit for sales. Renato Vega, I don't mind you doing that. Fine, it helps the club's finances. You know, I'm starting to not believe in Fofana anymore, which many of you guys are rejoicing. I think the goalkeepers has been an absolute disgrace. And, you know, Kukureya's become a great player. Hato might be good. So I like some players that they've bought. I like the fact how they've locked down Reece James and Levi Colwill to long-term deals, you know. But it doesn't matter because these are all individual cases of what I'm highlighting here of these players, when ultimately the product, I really want to like just let loose and swear like I do on my social media, but I don't want to hurt the advertising. You know, especially because I'm on my knees at the moment on this platform because Chelsea are really trying to ruin me. the collective is an absolute failure. The fact that they're not running, and look, I was thinking about this when I was on like a run this morning. Like all these players, Joao Pedro is Liam Rosenier's like, it was like his magnum opus in a short time, and even that's like fallen off. He basically got into Joao Pedro's head successfully. Cole Palmer was saying life's under Rosenior, we love him. But it's a bunch of kids. Maybe it is substitute teacher vibe, and the kids loved him because they're allowed to like watch TV in classes, and they're like, yeah, because Italian managers are. I know this is a little bit of a stereotype, but like strict. Your Contes, your Sarris, and maybe Ancelotti's the exception to the rule there. But like Maresca might have been a little bit more stricter on the players, and then Liam comes in and says, "Hey, bro, how's it going? Everyone chill." And then everyone says nice things about him. But when you're a bunch of children, maybe you need an iron fist, because this is completely unacceptable what we're seeing. We're getting outplayed every single game. Defensively, chasms in all the defensive lines, and it's an absolute disgrace. A genuine disgrace. And you guys know me, like I try and be a bit more methodical, philosophical of how I describe things. What I've been seeing on the pitch is a disgrace. Disgracia. Now, I do like Liam. I like how, by all accounts, he's a really good up-and-coming coach. I do think the emotional intelligence is important. I do think someone like Nagelsmann has a lot of that as well, but he's got more of the tactical acumen and experience at high level with high-level players. I think we need a proper manager. I don't care what Finkelstein says about no correlation. I don't care. He is a company man, and I was willing to back him, and I do wish him all the best. And even in defeat, I just like listening to him, and I'm rooting for him. I like how he talks about a lot of stuff, and I do think some of his ideas are good. But it's not like I never turn aggressively on football managers ever, really. But I can understand how, say, like Man United fans just lost their S with Ten Hag or Amorim and other club club fans, I guess, against managers. I won't do that with Rosenior, but I cannot see a situation I can't see him convincing me now. Because even if we have a good win, like this could happen immediately afterwards. I'm gonna read this article from Keris Jones in a minute, where Chelsea's leaders. We're gonna get into that, but there's going to be a protest between Not a Project FC. I believe they're getting some of the French lot over from Strasbourg, which is really good. It's a really good demonstration, a collective. There will rightly be more demonstrations, and I've always promote them, especially when you've got an alliance joined up thinking, and it's not just, you don't even know what you're protesting against. There will be that. If I could snap my fingers, I would have created this amazing scenario, because I am genuinely worried about what new owners, a completely alienated thing, like a third time removed from Abramovich, what Chelsea would become. I'm genuinely worried, because you can't use Abramovich as a barometer anymore. You can use Chelsea as a barometer of what we stand for and what we are, but the more owners you go for, that gets diluted. So, and because Bowley wanted to buy Chelsea, this amazing winning franchise with big players, in my head I would create this fantasy that Bowley buys out a Clearlake, changes the model, starts going to Stamford Bridge again, and buys a couple of superstars and all, do you know what I mean, all this kind of stuff. But I just don't think that's gonna. I mean, I hope that happens, and I hope maybe there's momentum towards that, and maybe some fans would go with that. I don't know, or maybe some fans would just be calling for like Qatar or Saudi or whatever. Or Saudi can't, because they've got the Newcastle. There'll be a conflicted interest, the PIF. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what people would want, but even that won't happen immediately. The sporting directors won't go immediately. But we can change the manager immediately. Look, I know Fabrizio Romano, I'm just speaking my position. Romano has come out and said they're backing him. Doesn't surprise me. But it's the international break, and I would have seen enough. I would have seen enough purely on the premise that there's so much to play for. We genuinely can win the FA Cup this season. Genuinely. This team can win the FA Cup. You beat Port Vale at home, and if you don't beat Port Vale, liquidate the club. No offence to Port Vale. You beat them, your semi-final at Wembley. you can win the FA Cup and finish in the Champions League. Chelsea of old, that would have been a very acceptable season. You know, Frank Lampard, JT. But I mean, you know, these guys, they only won together 3 Premier Leagues, most of like Lampard. Do you know what I mean? But Champions League. So if they finished in a Champions League position and won the FA Cup, they'd be like, right, that's fine for Chelsea. We go again next season, especially for a young team that should get better when they get older. So a good season is still in the grasp with this talent, but not what I'm seeing on the pitch. Not what I'm seeing. From what we've seen in the last few games, it cannot and will not happen. And that's why they should just do something, change something. Interim it. Go 4-4-2, defensive, reactive, counter-attacking. Literally, that's what I would do. I would stink it up for the rest of the season. I'd say to McFarlane, right, you got it, mate. You know, we'll give you an extra couple of coaches. There's political reasons why they won't get JT in, which is disappointing. But this is what I'd do. I'd get Callum in, I'd get JT in. He'd get dressing room, say, right, no goals, boys, no effing goals. We don't concede any goals. We don't concede goals anymore. Done. Yeah. And I play 4-4-2s, give up possession, start running more. And Cole Palmer plays amazing in counter-attacking football. We saw it on Pochettino's Chaos Ball, but maybe be less open at the back than Pochettino. And just be like, right, keep doing that to the end of the season. And then after the World Cup, world-class managers would be available. That's what I would do, because this is not working. It won't happen, because they're all a bunch of knobheads, but that's what I would do. Okay, so let's talk about the players themselves. Where are the leaders at Chelsea, writes Keris Jones. I do want to read into this because, you know, Chelsea used to be about leaders. 10 players stood still, hands on their hips and head tipped towards the ground, up at the sky. Iliman Ndiaye sprinted with his teammates into the stand, having nestled one. Basically scored an absolute blinder. And Rob Sanchez goal. Rob Sanchez had an absolute stinker, as is his style. The only Chelsea player really moving was Estevo. He ran back through the Chelsea's half beyond Sanchez to pull the ball from the back of the net. And we need to just give Estevo, give an 18-year-old who's played barely any minutes in the Europe, the captain's armband, because the way he was dribbling into the box when we all looked terrible, you know, Cole was putting his arm around his neck saying, like, you know, you're trying, we're linking up well here, you and me, everyone else is dog so-and-so. Anyway, the 18-year-old who's only been at Chelsea since last summer and only been back from the pitch for 6 minutes after more than a month out injured, to be the player trying his hardest to rally the troops should make his teammates uncomfortable. It's a disgrace. When they needed leadership, unity the most, there was none to be seen on the pitch at the Hill Dickinson Stadium. By the way, it's the first time they've had 2 wins in a row. Dr. Chelsea coming, Charity FC, back in the habit. Much of the 3-0 defeat echoed familiar errors from earlier this season, with the ease of which Everton opened up the defence with direct play from their first and third goals, and Sanchez's error for the second are all established problems. Their wastefulness in front of goal was continued theme for the past few games. Yeah, it was dreadful scenes, man. Yet the factor that stood out the most on Saturday was how Chelsea seemed to completely lose the belief that they could respond to those errors. Yeah. At least in that West Ham comeback, they believed. These man don't believe. And not one player stepped up to pull the side together. Indeed, that's it, innit? I always say this, gang, and sorry if you get bored of me saying this, but football match is a theatre production, and you all adopt your roles, and you sort of take that role as, oh, we're losing, and we're the victims, we're the protagonists, the antagonists, the victims. We become the victims, and it takes a very special someone to pierce through the role of your team, and it used to be like an Eden Hazard or someone like that, but there's no one. You know, glimpses of Esteban. We just accepted we were the no swearing losers. If in a difficult run of games against big teams, your energy levels and your confidence levels can drop if the other team scores first, and that's what happened, says Rosenior. I mean, no disrespect to Everton, they are a big team, but we are Chelsea. It's about flow and momentum, and we didn't have any in the game today. Oh well. Chelsea had been improving, at least slightly, in how they responded to setbacks. Rosenior's side came back from Aston Villa, we conceded earlier. Of course, we won 4-1 in the end in March, and equalised twice before collapsing on the first tie PSG. Yeah, kind of all went wrong from there, because then it was Newcastle, and then this game. They needed to show character more than ever against Everton after getting humbled and battered 8-2 on aggregate against PSG. Liverpool's loss at Brighton earlier gave us a chance to get back in the top 5. Also, of course, Man United drew. But no, we are terrible. But as they showed no conviction, the opening 20 minutes... By the way, that was a harrowing opening 20 minutes. It was like Saving Private Ryan opening. You know, is it D-Day? Anyway, it was terrible. The opening 20 minutes saw pass after pass misplaced, and Chelsea were fortunate not to go behind in the 10th minute after Sanchez had his pocket picked. Robert Sanchez, bro. I told you my end of season review has ended weeks ago now. He's gone, bro. I can't tell you how gone Sanchez is. By Beto and Caicedo had to rush in and sweep up and save him. An improved passage followed, only for Beto to then latch onto the ball from James Garner and put Wesley Fofana. Pull away from Fofana, who looked terrible. He was asking Sanchez to get the ball. It was an absolute horror show, embarrassment, disgracia, etc. At this point, Chelsea have just been speak English, Yannick? Having just begun to exert some influence in the game, calm heads ought to have prevailed. Knobheads. It was an opportunity for senior figures, such as Captain Enzo Fernandez. Don't think he wants to be here anymore, so... yeah, to pull the team together for a discussion as can't talk anymore. I'm just so raged at this team. Everton celebrated. Instead, Chelsea's players stood scattered around their half, looking disconsolate and frustrated. For a team who recently put so much stock into uniting the value of a pre-match huddle, that pre-match huddle has ruined us. It's like some juju we've put on ourselves and cursed ourselves. We've cast us, and that's on you, Rosenior. It's not on him because he didn't decide it, but it's on him to look at this and be like, right, the children are doing something in the playground that's not serving us. Stop it. Stop it now. Stop it. It was surprising that after none of Everton's 3 goals, did Chelsea pull the squad together to analyse what's wrong. Any more huddles before the kickoff after you concede? 5 huddles we could have had in that time. Imagine all the huddles. Yes, Chelsea players are likely fatigued after a long season, yada yada yada, club triumph, yada yada yada. Yes, Rosenior must take some responsibility for the defeat, but the squad featuring a World Cup winner in Fernandez, a European champion in Marc Cucurella, and plenty of other seasoned club professionals for club and country should be capable of showing some initiative and self-direction on the pitch. True, but no, we stink. Nobody was coordinating their effort. Shortly after conceding one of the goals, Palmer and Joao Pedro were under each other's feet as they looked to get on the ball. Shambles. Fernandez and Cucurella, who have been Chelsea's 2 most dependable heads, were distracted by a spat with Ndiaye in the 83rd minute. That's helpful as well. Lots of arguments. No clean sheets or goals, but lots of arguments. It was a stark contrast with Everton, who were communicative and confident, to the point where David Moyes voiced disappointment that the international break came at a time when they disrupt the momentum. Yep. It's a good time for us to change the manager. We won't, though. They look like an organised, cohesive unit. Chelsea look like a group of individuals. Yeah. Yep. Facts are being spoken about here. Who are the leaders Chelsea can look to for the moment? Well, Captain Reece James and, of course, centre-back Trevoh are out injured. Fernandez appears to not give a S-word anymore. He was asked about Enzo Maresca's departure. He said Enzo had a very clear identity when it came to training. And obviously, it hurt a lot in the departure. Moreover, in the middle of the season, that cut everything off, Fernandez said. He's saying he knew what the plan was under Maresca and he was annoyed that he went. We knew the 2 players that were most hurt by the departure were Fernandez and Cucurella. Although Fernandez did start playing really well at the beginning of Rosenior's tenure, I don't know. It's tricky. It's sickening. It's Chelsea. Rosenior was not asked specifically about that interview, but said in the pre-match press conference that he had a great conversation with Fernandes and where the midfielder reaffirmed his commitment to the club. He was basically saying that he wants to win. I don't think there's a lack of efforts as the Chelsea head coach. I don't think there's a lack of belief, determination in the team. In fact, I felt like Enzo kept going to the very last minute today. I mean, there's an element of personal pride, but the dysfunction's palpable and profound. This is me, obviously speaking, not Keris Jones. I'll read on. Let's land this plane full of toxic... not the journalism, it's good journalism, but the content about Chelsea's toxic sewage. Perhaps Fernandez's exact meaning was misconstrued, but his comments are still unhelpful. Look, at a time when he's wearing the armband, look, it is, and I don't like Enzo for any of these interviews. We'll see after the summer. Last manager he sacked. I don't like it. It's putting himself before the club. I get it. Many of you are like, well, Chelsea's a circus at the moment. Fair play to him. He's young. It's his own career. Fine, you can take that stance. But me, personally, I don't like it because he's doing this to my club, Chelsea. When you get paid that much money and you get to put on the Chelsea shirt, when you get given the armband that greats have worn, you don't come out and think for yourself and speak for yourself afterwards. Even if if he doesn't owe any Chelsea anything, whatever, fine, do one. Mason Mount owed Chelsea loads, but someone like Kai Havertz, I don't care. Noni Madueke, I don't care that they score goals against Chelsea to celebrate. Noni hasn't. I've got no issue with that, and Fernandes might do it as well. I got no issue, but if you're wearing the captain's armband, you just got to do better, mate. Beyond him, Cucurella, Palmer and Caicedo, all core players for Chelsea, have not been performing to their usual levels. Rosenior did say he don't think it's a lack of effort or belief or determination. The international break has come at a good time for us because we can change the manager. Because I genuinely thought today we might hear an announcement, but they're obviously giving him the reset. They're rolling the dice that he can turn it around after an international break. And again, I like Liam. Genuinely. I'm not one of these people that's going to take the mick out of him and be like, high performance, LinkedIn Liam. He's not doing himself any favours. There was that clip in the game where he was sitting with his hands in his pockets or something and he saw himself on the screen and quickly got up and pretended he was interested. Obviously he's interested, but it was like a performative moment. Of course it effing was. And it's a bad look. All of it is a bad look. Respecting Everton friggin' posting something about respecting the ball on their social media. And fair F's to them. Fair play. Yeah, why not? Take the mick out of us. We deserve it. And look, I like Liam. I do. I really do. I wish him all the best. But I don't think this is going to work. I hope I'm wrong. If he does stay, the international break comes and goes. We finish fourth somehow, just making this up, and win the FA Cup. And I go, wow, go on, Liam, pleased for you. But at the moment, I think we should genuinely can him. Do you know what I mean? I'm not one of these guys that shout for the manager to be sacked and say they're terrible. I'm not doing it like that. I'm doing it. I'll do it my way. He speaks about the international break coming at the right time, might refresh the group. Keris finishes the piece by saying a temporary change of environment might help, but as they enter a tough run of final fixtures, including Man City, who we can beat, Chelsea can beat that Man City, Man United, Chelsea can beat their Man United, and Liverpool, Chelsea can beat Liverpool. Not how we're playing right now, but these teams are dog doo-doo as well, mate. Chelsea, this is why everyone's being like, Arsenal's Premier League season, everyone was trash. #asterisk, which I don't buy into, by the way. They're deserved champions and they should enjoy it. Chelsea have never needed players to show up leadership more than right now. It's hard to see who's stepping up. It's making me miserable. Genuinely, truly is. More than it has before. Genuinely. I mean, last season I had the nadir of last season was the Brighton double or triple losses under Maresca in all the different competitions. That was my real sad moment. But this is now for me because the players look disinterested. Genuinely, man. I don't know what else to friggin' tell you, man. They look disinterested. What do I like? Do you know what I mean? Just the chasms. It's not even about what Keris is writing about, needing the leaders when we go down and it's really bad, and who do you turn to? It's not even about that. Like, it is about that. Obviously, it's a massive bit, but it's just the tactics. The man-to-man, the new pressing he's trying, the 4-4-2 every now and again, just whatever he says, however he tries to Rubik's Cube his way through this tactical explanation. The one weakness of it all is just this chasm through the middle of the pitch where any team can play through and score the most, disgraceful goals you've ever seen in your entire life. And then if you don't concede a worldie, like if someone just randomly scored like, an overhead kick from the halfway line, like Zlatan against England or something, you just go, wow, that's a weird moment. But but when it's like these goals happening, they're looking at each other going, why are we terrible? Why did that goal happen? Do you know what I mean? And it's just enough. All right, let me know what you think, gang. I'll be back every day, The Pain Show, so do consider liking and subscribing. If you do want to help me out, please consider going to your podcast apps, giving me a follow and a 5-star rating by searching Football Therapy Podcast. Getting a few more 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Podcasts is helpful. Soothes the massive gaping wounds that Chelsea have inflicted on me. Alright, but I do hope you guys can enjoy stuff in your lives away from football. And peace. Take care.